We're going to be in Proverbs, back in the book of Proverbs. Now, I've been warning you since the beginning that our strategy might change as we get a little bit further into the book, right? So those first few chapters are very linked, and you got large sections of the reading that go together, right? And so we covered those chapters as we often do in books, where we kind of went expositionally through it, right? And we started in chapter 1 and we just went all the way through those chapters and those verses. But I kind of warned you that as you get further into Proverbs, you really start to hit a pretty big section where it's just one proverb after another, just bang, 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 right? You'll have a whole chapter of individual verses that aren't necessarily connected one by one, right? And you have to, if you're going to sit down and read the book of Proverbs, it is totally fine, even when you get into those chapters, to just read the whole chapter. But just realize that it is a collection of proverbs versus one continual story or one continual theme. It's why it's often pointed out that oftentimes you could read a proverb a day, right? It is a really good book to just say that every day I'm going to go and grab Proverbs. Another way that you can study Proverbs, which is kind of what we're going to do a little bit tonight, is and as you're reading it, whether you use a highlighter or you keep a separate spreadsheet or document, start to put some of these verses into categories or topics, so to speak, right? And then come back when you have an opportunity and start to look at all of the verses dealing with that topic. There are multiple verses in Proverbs, for example, dealing with the scorner and the person that you're trying to educate, so to speak, right? You're trying to rebuke somebody. Lots of different verses talk about the different ways people react to being rebuked. There's a lot of different verses in there about those that are, and I'm going to use the word lazy. The Bible uses the word sluggard, right? But there's a lot of verses in there that deal with those things. There's a lot of verses that deal with anger and how you handle anger and what you do with that anger. There's verses that deal with how you listen or don't listen. There's verses about how you use your words, right? So if you get a chance, Proverbs is really neat because you can study it lots of different ways. Read a verse a day, read a chapter a day, and you can go through the whole thing in a month. Read the whole thing, highlight a bunch of stuff and categorize it, and then come back and study it topically once you've kind of categorized those verses. So Proverbs is kind of neat in that way. And I'll just say one more time, especially as you get into chapter 10, maybe not all the way through, but definitely chapter 10 on through most of the book. These are words of wisdom, words of advice, and a general rule of thumb, right, is a proverb is not the same thing as a promise. Promise from the Lord is you do X and I'm going to do Y. Proverbs are good general statements about when this happens, this is usually the outcome, or this is the wise way to handle that, which, again, not to belabor it, is not the same thing as a promise. So just keep that in mind as you go through this, okay? What I want to do today, and this is going to be a little bit different because sometimes when we go through these things, we're doing a marathon, right? I'm not sure whether I don't think I want to call it a marathon. We're going to call this a sprint. We got a lot of verses, and we're going to try to cover as much ground as we can in a short amount of time. There's some of these verses, I'm just going to read them, and I'm going to keep going. There's some of them I'm going to read, and I'll give you a little bit of commentary, because how I am, I can't say some of these things without saying something. But there are places where I'm just going to read it, because we've already said that same thing like 4 times, right? Proverbs says many times the same thing. And I just take that as a hint that there's a lot of us that need that, right? Because he says it, and then a few chapters later he says it again, and a few chapters later he says it again. And so those are some of the things that as we go through this, keep those things in mind. So, Proverbs chapter 10, I'm going to do the best I can to talk about all the places in Proverbs that talk about the way we speak. We speak. There are some that I may skip because they're borderline. Is it talking about the way we speak or the way we listen? We'll come back later and talk about what Proverbs has to say about how we listen, okay? But today we want to talk about how we speak. Proverbs chapter 11, let's start in verse 10. The mouth of a righteous man is a well of life, but violence covereth the mouth of the wicked. To get us started, I want you to think about this. The way we use our words can be so impactful, right? The harm you do to others, the lifting up you do to others, the way you shape the direction somebody goes, your reputation, all of those things are impacted by what comes out of your mouth. And this verse talks about the mouth of a righteous man is a well of life. When we are living righteously and our mouth is speaking righteously, right? That is described as a well of life. The way we say them, they can be something that literally lifts up and encourages, or they can be something that destroys and tears down. The Bible says a righteous man's mouth is the well of life, but violence covereth the mouth of the wicked. Which one do you want to be? Do you want to be the one whose words are a well of life, or the one whose mouth is known as a place of violence, or something that conveys violence, brings violence, stirs up violence? You understand, I'm spending a little bit of time on this as we get started, right? What you say matters. Now, I will mostly deal with the practical aspects of these words of wisdom. I will occasionally get into a spiritual aspect. It was pointed out by some commentators that the mouth of the righteous man should be carrying the gospel. And that is definitely a well of life. So, listen, for those of you that are here today and saved, make sure that your mouth is carrying out the gospel to others, right? So, I'll just mention that in passing too. You've got verses like verse 13, "In the lips of him that hath understanding, wisdom is found. But a rod is for the back of him that is void of understanding." We've talked about this fact. I want to say it again. when the Proverbs is talking about wisdom and knowledge and understanding, it's not just talking about scholarly wisdom and knowledge. It is talking about the wisdom and knowledge and understanding of the Lord, right? Always keep that in mind when you are dealing with Proverbs. The wisdom, the understanding, and knowledge of God. So, the lips of him that hath understanding, wisdom is found. If you've got understanding of the Lord and you've got his wisdom, or I should say it this way, if you have understanding of the Lord, the things coming out of your mouth are going to reflect wisdom. But a rod is for the back of him that is void of understanding. If I sum up this verse, it'd be to say, those that are void of understanding of the Lord, there's a lot of discipline, correction, and judgment that's in their way, that's coming, right? I think that's the way I'd sum that up. Verse 14, wise men lay up knowledge, but the mouth of the foolish is near destruction. Listen, you can be a wise man, and you can be gaining knowledge and sharing it as appropriate, where it's appropriate, to who it's appropriate, how it's appropriate. That shoots off his mouth constantly and leads to nothing but destruction. Verse 18. He that hideth hatred with lying lips, and he that uttereth a slander is a fool. The Bible doesn't, I'll tell you what, it's so funny. The Bible really doesn't pull any punches, does it? You hide your true intent with lying lips and a false front. Or you say false things about people, you're a fool. You're a fool. We need to be careful how we speak about others. Because God says, you slander other people, which is basically saying things about them that's not true. You're a fool. You cover up your true intent through lying, you're a fool. 19. We're not even out of verse 10. We're not even out of chapter 10 yet. In the multitude of words there wanteth not sin, but he that refraineth his lips is wise. I think the way I would say this one, you don't have to say everything that comes into your head, right? In the multitude of words there wanteth not sin, but he that refraineth his lips is wise. Know when to keep your mouth shut and know when to open it. And by the way, have you ever done this? Some situation occurs, you say a few things, and in those short things that you say, you look really smart, you look really wise, and it was really helpful, but you just don't know when to stop talking. And 15 minutes later, you've said so much that you've screwed up. Right? Hey, practical stuff here. Know when to say something. Know when not to say something. Know when to say a little versus a whole bunch. Sometimes the more you keep talking, the more chance you have of messing it up. But the opposite is true too, right? There's some verses in here that talk about you need to speak up when you need to speak up. I like this one, verse 20. The tongue of the just, that's right or righteous or lawful, is as choice silver. The heart of the wicked is of little worth. The just man, the righteous man, Even the words he speaks, they are something that people hold value in. There's another verse later that's even more direct on this. I think about people like Grandpa Orville, right? He didn't say a whole lot, but when he said something, you listened, right? It was as choice silver. When he spoke, you knew he had put thought into it. You knew he wasn't just speaking because he thought everybody needed to hear his voice. The tongue of the just is as silver. Those that are righteous and right and want to do what's right, their words matter and people value them. But the very heart of the wicked, man, it isn't worth the weight of itself, right? It's of little worth. Verse 31, the mouth of the just bringeth forth wisdom, but the forward, that would be perverse, tongue shall be cut out. Written by a king, by the way. I wonder what his opinion was about people that he caught in the middle of deceitful, perverse language. Like, people that live that way and are like that, people that are just constantly in this state of perverse speaking, the king here's like, you know what, their tongue ought to just be cut out. That's what it's worth. Just cut it out. The lips of the righteous know what is acceptable, but the mouth of the wicked speaketh frowardness. Again, that word perversity. The lips of the righteous know what is acceptable, what's good, and what's right for the time, the situation, the place, the person. But the first person, they ain't got a clue. They open their mouth and they say stupid stuff, perverse things, vile things, deceitful things, almost as if they're not even aware of the situation and the people they're talking to and what's going on. That is a sign, by the way, of a wicked person. The Bible says that's a wicked person. You got somebody that's going around constantly speaking perverse, vile, deceitful things. The Bible. Proverbs chapter 11, verse 9. A hypocrite with his mouth destroyeth his neighbor, but through knowledge the just shall be delivered. Do you see the difference here in the way somebody's mouth is used? The hypocrite, the way he speaks and what he says, it destroys people. But the opposite of that is the fact that the things of God, the wisdom of God, the knowledge of God, the wisdom of God, that brings deliverance. Do the things you say deliver those that need deliverance, or do they destroy those that are close to you? Verse 11. By the blessing of the upright, the city is exalted. The benediction, the things that are said or the things that are prayed for or said about that city by the wise, man, they exalt the city. It lifts up, it encourages, right? But it is overthrown by the mouth of the wicked. Again, let's talk about it. Are the words coming out of your mouth Let me apply this several ways here. Are the words coming out of your mouth a blessing to your community? Are they a blessing to your church? Are they a blessing to your family? Or are the words that come out of your mouth going to lead to the destruction of your community, to the harm of your church, and the destruction of your family? Right? Your words matter. The blessing of the upright takes the city and it exalts the city, but the city's overthrown by the mouth of the wicked. A talebearer, verse 13, a talebearer revealeth secrets, but he that is of a faithful spirit concealeth the matter. Talebearer is this idea, by the way, of somebody that takes a scandal, and I hesitate to use the word scandal because scandal sometimes indicates that the thing really did happen, and that can be the case. It could also be used in one that takes a false story and carries it forward. But this idea of a tale bearer is that idea of somebody that takes this falsehood or takes this scandalous thing and bears it out to everybody, right? They take it, they carry it, and they're giving it out. Hey, did you hear this? Hey, did you hear what Elliot did? No, but I sure heard what Jasmine did. Oh yeah, well I got one better. I think Sierra did X, Y, and Z. Did you know that? I bet you didn't know that about her. Let me tell you, hey, I got something better on that. I can give you more than that. Let me tell you what happened the other day. Right? A talebearer revealeth secrets. Listen, if you're a friend, you got two friends, and I'm using the term loosely. You got two friends. This one's really in need, and in a time of need, they really confess this other one something that's happened to them, or something they're struggling with maybe. Maybe they're struggling with something in life, and they convey that to this person. You know what you don't want in a somebody that goes out and says, hey, old Josiah, he told me that he's really been struggling with this thing. Did you know that? Did you know he's struggling with that? Ha, I'd have never guessed it. I bet you didn't know it either. Spreads stuff about others that was meant to be given in secret. Okay? But he that is of a faithful spirit concealeth the matter. Now I'm just going to get this out of the way right off the bat. These verses, and you probably already know where I'm going with this. These verses are not meant to be used in a church context setting where somebody has done some wicked sin against... Okay, let me clarify what I'm saying here. I've seen situations where somebody molests or sexually assaults somebody in church, and these verses are pulled out to say, well, a true friend and a faithful spirit's going to conceal those things instead of spreading that all over the place. That is not what we're talking about here. Okay? Let's just get that out of the way really quick. There is a way to handle that, right? There is a way to handle that. This is not talking about concealing wickedness that should be exposed. But you come to me with your struggles and these things that you're dealing with. It is my job to make sure that I'm not going out and spreading that around all over the place. A talebearer causes a lot of destruction. Okay. Chapter 12. Chapter 12. Verse 6. The words of the wicked are to lie in wait for blood, but the mouth of the upright shall deliver them. This is, by the way, almost an exact repeat of one of the verses that we saw back there, right? Are your words ones of planning, of destruction? Are they set to be a trap? Are your words stated in a way that's going to trap and ensnare people? Or are your words words of deliverance for people? Help them through the things they're going through. You find ways to be an encouragement. You give them the words they need to hear that are going to help deliver them. Which one is it? Verse 18. I told you tonight was going to be a little bit different. We're literally just throwing these things out here in quick snapshots, right? Verse 18. There is that speaketh like piercings of a sword, but the tongue of the wise is health. We'll just read verse 19 too. The lip of truth shall be established forever, but a lying tongue is but for a moment. I want you to think about verse 18. That whole thing about sticks and stones might break my bones, but words will never hurt me. That sounds good. It is a lie. It is a flat out lie. The Bible describes words as listen, there are things we can say, and the tone and the words can pierce like a knife. I've seen this done a couple different ways, and there's some verses further ahead that'll deal with this. I've seen this done by people who just flat out say something mean and ugly and nasty. You know it's nasty. It's meant to be nasty. Everybody around it knew it was nasty, and it hurts. But I've seen other people that in a group setting can say something that's funny, and they say it lighthearted, and they say it where some of the people in the room don't quite catch it. But listen, it is meant to sting. Our words matter. The lip of truth shall be established forever, but a lying tongue is but for a moment. Now I'm going to wax spiritual here or doctrinal here for. We're gonna slide away for a second from the practical daily stuff. There is coming a time when all lying will be put away. There's coming a time where those that have been redeemed by the blood of the Lord Jesus Christ and are His children will be welcomed into eternity, and their tears and their sorrow and they'll be in a situation of complete sinlessness. And lying is done away with. Because all of those that are not covered by the blood of the Lamb, but that are liars and cheats and thieves and adulterers and all this other stuff, they will be cast into the lake of fire forever. So, from a day-to-day perspective, don't forget, there is coming a time when God is going to wipe away lying. 22, lying lips are an abomination to the Lord, but they that deal truthfully are His delight. When people tell you this whole thing about, listen, it was just a little white lie, or listen, I get it, it was a lie, I probably shouldn't have done it, no big deal, no harm done. You know what God thinks about lying? It's an abomination to Him. That word abomination carries with it the idea, and I'll say it this way, it makes Him sick to His stomach. I mean, obviously the Lord Himself doesn't literally get sick to His stomach, but that's like, it disgusts Him. I think if we really truly thought about how a crying spirit affects this life, we would start to understand that. You know, the Bible and the law comes down super hard on a false witness. You understand the impact the false witness can have on a life? There are people that have been sent to prison or worse. Somebody lied about it. Lies can be super destructive. Verse 23, a prudent man concealeth knowledge, but the heart of fools proclaimeth foolishness. This verse is not necessarily talking about, oh, I've got the knowledge and I'm not going to share it. I think the context of this is like, you've got the one person over here who has knowledge, and they're going to convey it when it's appropriate, to who it's appropriate to, how it's appropriate, but they're not going to be boastful and out there just telling everybody about all of their great knowledge and wisdom and how awesome they are. Whereas the foolish one, man, they're going to be out there spouting off at the top of the, just constantly about everything and how great they are and how smart they are. And in the end, you know what they are? They're fools. How are you using your mouth? Verse 13 Proverbs chapter 13, verse 3. He that keepeth his mouth keepeth his life, but he that openeth wide his lips shall have destruction. You've seen times and situations where people just can't keep their mouth shut. And you know what? They just keep driving themselves further and further and further into trouble because they just don't know how to be quiet. They're talking about things they shouldn't talk about. They're talking about people they shouldn't be talking about. The Bible says that he that keepeth his mouth keepeth his life. Be careful what you say, how you say it, and who you say it to. You know, it might not be a good idea to walk up to that 6'5", 300-pound biker and tell him he's stupid. It might cause you some problems. Be wise and know when to open your mouth and when not to open your mouth. Because sometimes, I've already talked about the fact that your words can cause destruction for others. Hey, listen, your words can cause destruction for you. Verse 5. A righteous man hateth lying, but a wicked man is loathsome and cometh to shame. That loathsome there is almost this idea of, it literally means to smell bad. Obviously, in the context of this, it's mean to be morally corrupt or morally disdainful. A righteous man hates lying. Doesn't want to do it. Doesn't want to be a part of the people that he is partnered with, associated with. Doesn't like lying, right? Because he knows it's harmful, destructive, and it's an abomination to God. But man, the wicked man, he's morally bankrupt. He's morally corrupt. He doesn't care. You know what it's going to come to? It's going to come to shame. He's going to spout his mouth off. He's going to say a bunch of stuff he shouldn't say about people he shouldn't say it about. And he's going to build up a horrible reputation, or he's going to say something someday, and it comes out that this guy's a liar, and now it's this big public example of you can't believe what this guy says. It's going to cometh to shame. Proverbs chapter 14, verse 3. In the mouth of the foolish is a rod of pride, but the lips of the wise shall preserve them. I think what you need to look at in this is this idea of, in the mouth of the fool, full of pride, it becomes this weapon, this thing that causes harm and destruction. But the lips of the wise are actually something that build a hedge of protection around people. Are your words a stick that beat others and beat yourself? Or are your words words that build a hedge of protection around somebody? Verse 5, a faithful witness will not lie, but a false witness will utter lies. That is such a, why does that even have to be said? It's just one of those statements that it's like, yeah, of course. Somebody that lies is a false witness. Somebody that tells the truth is not. But guess what? We kind of need to have those blunt, simple statements told to us again, right? Hey, guess what? You go up there in a court case as a witness and you get sworn in, you better make sure the things that you are saying are true, right? You better make sure the words coming out of your mouth are accurate. Otherwise, you're going to be labeled a false witness. And there are consequences that come with that. A faithful witness, somebody that's steady and true and established, trustworthy, will not lie. But a false witness will utter lies. I'm going to say this too. You've got somebody that has a reputation of being dishonest. Don't be surprised when they lie, right? You've got somebody that has built a reputation of being faithful to the honest truth. You can rely on them. If I'm a lawyer, I can put them on the stand because they have a reputation of being honest. Do you know how much harder it is to use a witness in a court case who has a reputation of being dishonest? Hey, you can still use them, but carries a whole lot less weight, doesn't it? We've only made it part way, but I think I'm trying to decide how far to go here, but let's go ahead and go to verse 7. We're going to have to wrap it up pretty soon. Verse 7, go from the presence of a foolish man when thou perceivest not in him the lips of knowledge. As you're around somebody, and through the words that they use and the way they speak, you kind of come to this conclusion, this guy does not have the knowledge of the Lord. The advice is leave their presence. Go from the presence of a foolish man when thou perceivest, wait a second, this guy's mouth is proving he does not have the knowledge of God. It's time for me to distance myself from him. All right? It's pretty good advice. Verse 23 of chapter 14. In all labor there is profit, but the talk of the lips tendeth only to penury, that is, deficiency or impoverishment. Context on this would indicate, listen, not everything we say leads to poverty. That's not what this is saying. I think the context of this is saying, work when you need to work. Know when to be quiet and go get your job done. But if the job is not getting done because you can't stop sitting around and idle talk that has no value, guess where it's going to lead to? Poverty. Kids, most of you are getting old enough that it isn't going to be too many years till you're going out and getting a job. If somebody is paying you to work. In my job, we try to create an attitude and a culture of, you know what, it's okay to sit and visit a little bit. It builds collaboration, it builds relationships, it builds trust. That's okay. But when that 5-minute conversation turns into an hour and 15-minute conversation, has nothing to do with work, and the work is backing up, and the customers are getting unhappy, guess what? We have a problem. And if that's a normal thing, you probably aren't going to be here very long. I think that's the way that I would sum up this verse. Verse 25, a true witness delivereth souls, but a deceitful witness speaketh lies. We have already had this said multiple times throughout the course. It's just saying it in slightly different ways. Is what you're saying truthful and honest and delivering people and lifting up? And if it's not, and it's coming out as untruths and false witness, you are destroying yourself and those around you. All right. One more. Man, it's hard to stop. But one more. Proverbs chapter 15, verse 1. How are we using our words? How are we using our mouth? This is a very well-known verse. It says, a soft answer turneth away wrath. It's interesting, if you look up that word soft in Strong's, the first word that comes up is tender. Tender. A soft answer turneth away wrath. Turneth away, by the way, means to turn back. Do you understand what I'm saying there? The wrath is already there. This isn't just talking about if I say something that's not soft and tender to you, it may make you mad. It's actually saying, in the face of wrath, sometimes a soft and tender answer turns that wrath around. Does that make sense? We often look at this as just simply saying, if I speak nice, I'm not going to make you mad. And there is truth to that. It's much deeper than that. The way you speak to somebody who is already angry makes a big difference. A soft answer turneth away wrath, but grievous words, painful words, or that's probably the best way to say it, would be painful words, stir up anger. Stir up anger. The word, when you look at it in Strong's, is to ascend or to mount. Again, I think the same thing can apply here. Yes, you can use it in the way of saying, if I say painful words to somebody that's fine, I could make them angry. I think you can also take it to mean, if there's already some anger here, and I say painful, grievous words, I'm only going to make it worse. Right? Man, how many times is that the way we handle these situations. Something happens, we retaliate. We don't make it better, we make it worse. We don't come closer to a resolution, we've just driven it further away from solution. So think about this verse in two ways. How you say and what you say to somebody can either keep them happy or make them mad. But more importantly, if you are faced with a situation where there is already wrath, what you say will either help or it will make it worse. Be careful what you say, how you say it, when you say it, who you say it to. We've talked about this before. Man, this little tongue in our mouth, it is a dangerous, dangerous weapon. The things people have said, and I'm not saying this flippantly. Man, literally the things that people have said have gotten people killed, have broken up homes, have overthrown countries. We need to be careful with our words. As children of the King, as redeemed, forgiven people, we need to make sure that our words are an encouragement, a help, things that deliver versus things that stir up strife, versus things that tear down, versus things that destroy. Right? Use your words, use them wisely. We're only about 3/4 of the way through the list, by the way. There's still a lot more. So hopefully, Lord willing, we'll get to that next time, okay? Let's go ahead and go to the Lord in a word of prayer.